Our interview this morning is with Richard Jacobs. Richard was born in Cleburne, Texas in May of 1949. He served in the United States Army from October of 1967 until October of 1970. Most of his service time was in Vietnam. Today is Thursday, August the 30th, 2012. This recording is done at Burleson, Texas. My name is Dale Dexheimer. I'm not related to Mr. Jacobs in any way. Also in the room we have Milton Gibson and Gary Burton as our videographers, and Richard's wife Nancy is also present. This interview is conducted by the Burleson Heritage Foundation for the Library of Congress at Washington, D.C., and also for Operation Remember, Burleson, Texas. And with that little introduction, Richard, you can tell us about your time in the U.S. military, sir.
Okay, I was in high school at the height of this Vietnam War going on, and my draft number was pretty low, and then it was going to be coming up pretty sure it'd be coming up during the summer. So I made the decision that I would join, and I graduated on May 28th, which was my birthday, and the next day I went down and joined, and on the kind of delayed program, I didn't go in until October. And then in October we were shipped off to Fort Polk for basic training, whereas after basic training I was shipped back. I went home on leave for the holidays, and then I came back to Fort Polk for I don't remember what they call that next training, AIT training or whatever it is, but
Advanced infantry, I guess.
no, I became a cook and stayed there, and then after that I was shipped to Germany for a year. And then after a year in Germany, they shipped me to Vietnam. And I started out with the 101st Airborne attached to them. And we went, of course, from fire base to fire base around. I was with the 2nd Artillery, and we were with the Hallister 155s. And we would go out and support the infantry there at different fire bases. We'd set up go out for 30 days, maybe more, then go back to base camp, which was Quan Loy, and then they would ship us out again to some other fire base. And this went on for about the first 6 months. And then we had a changeover. Then they sent me attached to our group and two of the guns, and then they had and the cook always had to go with them. And we went with a Big Red One for a while, which was quite interesting bunch of people. We had 3 bases, they called, between Quan Loy and the city of An Loc. An Loc, for some reason, was a passage for the North Vietnamese travel supply route, and we were protecting the city of An Loc with these 3 bases there, and it was a constant fighting, the daily, night, and everything going on, trying to protect that town. For some reason, they thought it was important to keep it. And the road, they called this Thunder Road because of the 3 bases, and each base had 2 155s in it, and these things would go 24 hours a day, just about. And so and then from there, after we got there, we went back to our base camp there in Quanloy for a little while, and then we went back with the 101st Airborne, and they sent us to this base called Carolyn, Fire Base Carolyn, and it was on the border of Cambodia, and in fact there was a trail that you could see go through it. It came up, actually went through the camp, through our setup, and went on back up into the jungle. And it was the Ho Chi Minh Trail, is what it's called. It was a real nice place to be. And this camp has been overrun 3 times before we got there. And they wanted to hold on to that piece of property real bad. And this is where we daily would get hit with mortar rounds at least 3 times a day. And one day I got hit, took shrapnel in my back. It was nothing serious, fortunately, and just scared the daylights out of me. And we stayed there for 45 days for that. And their purpose, what they were doing, they were going into Cambodia. They had found 12 miles inside Cambodia, they had found a camp, a POW camp in there. And there were supposed to be a couple of hundred Americans in it. And so the 101st was going into it to get them out. And we were 12 miles back, and that is the range of the 155 that we were going to support them. Well, we sat there, and they dropped stuff at us all day long while these guys were going in. And then when they got in there to get them, and we were supposed to back them up, well, all of a sudden it got called off and found out the camp was empty. And they knew we were there and coming, so they took them off somewhere else to where we don't know, unfortunately. But it would have been quite a great thing if we could have gotten the guys out, but it didn't work out. So there we went back to base camp and just stayed there. And Quan Loy was quite a big base, and it was under fire constantly. We'd have ground attacks at nights and stuff. And kept you on your toes. And we would start out at 4 o'clock in the morning. We'd go light up the stoves to get breakfast going and stuff. And then we would finish up about 8 o'clock at night with the dinner. We'd cook all the dinner through there. And then we would, from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock, you kind of had 4 hours. You could go sleep or something. Sleep was almost an impossible thing with those cannons going off every other minute. But you had 4 hours to do something. And we had a tent set up where they had beer and stuff where they list them in. And we just all go in there and turn on some music and sit back and relax. And till 8 o'clock. And then we had to go on guard duty till midnight, and then start back at 4. This was just around around the clock going and going. Get 4 hours to kind of relax and drank a few beers to calm your nerves some. But the really thing to it, they knew that we were trying to relax between 8 and 12 because they just had a tendency, let's drop something in there during their relax time here. So we always knew something was coming, so we was usually just take our beer and go back to our bunker to be safer. And never failed, they would drop something in, but we would get hit at least 3 times a day with mortar rounds coming in. And we had, and while we was in our base camp there, we had these what they call mountain yards where people, I guess we're actually the lower income of the Vietnamese people. And they would come in and we would hire them to, clean up around camp some and do different things. And you had to watch these people pretty close, because when the mortar rounds come in, they were caught checking out where they landed and how far away they were from something. And then they figured out that these guys were, then they were going back and telling them, you missed, the number 3 round came in to hit here or something and missed the place. It's what they best figured out what they were doing. So we quit using them real quick like. If in fact that's what they were doing or not, I don't know, but that's what the officers there figured they were doing. And so there was always something going on. We one day we was doing in our bunker, we're sitting in our bunker there, and I heard something outside of it, like a tractor or something. And so I go outside to see what's going on, and there's a backhoe, and he's right at the end of our bunker, and he's digging a hole. And what is this guy doing? Oh, they heard some people talking. Somebody heard some people talking a while ago down there. And they were digging for a tunnel. And they did find a tunnel there. But nobody went in it to see where it went or anything. They just closed it up and fixed it so they couldn't use it anymore. And that makes you sleep better at night, knowing there's a tunnel running under your bunker. And then we went out on a few more missions here and there. Sometimes we never knew what we were going out for, but other than we would go out with either the Big Red One or the 101st, and just for where they go out, we would be back to support them. They needed some artillery, and we furnished it for them. And then my year got up, and I got to go home. I do remember going home. We flew out of the big base, and I can't, Benoit or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of it. Well, they had a convoy going out, and I went to the lieutenant that was over us and told him, "Sir, I ain't going on that convoy. I only got 3 days left, and I ain't going on that convoy." That's too dangerous. Because we went on too many convoys and had too many attacks and stuff. So we got along pretty good. So let me check into it. And a little bit later, he kind of, get your stuff. There's a helicopter going to be waiting on you out here in a little bit. So they put me in the Jeep, put my stuff, and took me down and put me on the helicopter. Just took me off to a base, put me on an airplane, and then flew me into the big one, plane where it was American Airlines was waiting there to take us back. And then American Airlines flew us went to Alaska where we changed planes and changed out from military to civilian pilots and stuff. And then to California and home. And then I went home for 30 days and got to go back to the ever so wonderful Fort Polk for my last 6 months, which didn't turn out to be a bad deal. For some reason, I don't know what reason it was, but I got the General Mueller he was over the fort there, and he needed a cook for his they cooked at his house, and somehow I got picked to do that, amazingly. And so, but I cooked for him, his wife, and his 2 kids for 6 months, and go to work at 9 to 5, had weekends off. I almost re-enlisted for that, a deal like that, but I did that for them, and it turned out to be a pretty good deal. But he's that guy, he'd always come in, and when he'd come in, I'd always have him a bourbon and water fixed on an ice for him. As long as that was sitting there, he was happy as could be. He'd sit down and talk to that, and he'd tell me to get a beer and come here. And I'd pour me a beer, and I'd sit down. He'd talk, I don't know, he just wanted to talk to somebody other than brass, I guess. And we just kind of shoot the bull for a while. It was time for me to get up and get dinner ready for him. But it was interesting. Some of it was those last few months. Excuse me.
Sunlight.
Excuse me. So then the day came, and I went home. I checked out, and being working for the general there, well, the checkout, you got to check it, takes forever. Well, he had his aide, was the captain, and he got in my car, and we went over to where he checked out at, and boy, he ran me through there. I was out of there in 30 minutes or something, where these guys waiting hours, to get you out of there. And I got in my car, and I headed back to Fort Worth. about all. I did have one little incident I didn't tell you about that was kind of, I thought was funny. They didn't, but one morning it was raining and cold, and we had been up all night, and I'd been sitting on guard duty, and I was soaked. And so I had to go back. We had our guns over in one area here, and then over here was a wooded area where we had our tents and everything set up, the mess hall and everything. So we went back across there to, I was elected to go get breakfast started, get some coffee made and stuff, have it ready. So I went back in there with a new cook that had just arrived the day before. Well, you take him under hand, teach him how to do this, I sure. So you had these stoves that we had to light up, and of course it was raining, it was somewhat hard to light these things up out there. But we had a little cover where we'd light them under, and you had to have two people to carry them in, because if you lifted up one end, the flames would go up and come out. And these stoves used actual gasoline, which, not too highly flammable. So I lit this thing up, so the kid out light up. Okay, you grab that end, and then I grab this end. We go in and we'll take it in, we set it down. And what I didn't tell the kid was to set it down, lightly. So I set my end down, the flames went up and got in him and burned and scared him. And he dropped his end, and the cap came off, and 2 gallons of gasoline came pouring out, and it hit that wall, and within a minute we'd had no mess hall again. We burned that mess hall, the dining room, storage area down in seconds. And the day before, I had finally made a specialist 4. And now I was a private again. And so,
some days you go up, some days you go down.
And I sure was going to enjoy that money. There's quite a bit of difference in pay there but they finally, they thought that they tried to prove that I lit the stove inside there, and that's of course against the rules, and I didn't. And so they went to the kid, and they don't, we lit them under this cover outside, and we carried them in and set it down, and I dropped my end a little too hard, and the cap fell off. So I got my rank back. It was a couple of weeks, but they decided to give it back, because I did what I was supposed to do for a change. And of course, we lost, lost everything, lost all your supplies, everything. And I guess for the 3 days afterwards, it took us 3 days to clean all the equipment back up and get everything back to work in order that we could salvage. And they put up another tent for cooking purposes. And for 3 days, all we ate was the sea rations there. And I wasn't too well liked at the time. Those things weren't, if y'all had those before, weren't just real good, especially 3 times a day. But when we got cooking again, they didn't complain about my cooking anymore. And then that all I've got.
You were an 18-year-old kid. The day you turned 18, you enlisted.
Yes, sir. imagine having to go home and tell your dad what you did. I went home, oh, guess Mom, Dad, I need to talk to you.
You didn't tell him beforehand?
No, I had no idea. So I joined the Army today. Oh boy, it all heck broke loose then. And I think my dad just, I've seen him mad a few times, but not this mad. And well, we got to do something about that. I said, can't do it. I already swore in and everything. I'm leaving in 90 days. And then I caught it from him and Mom both. And well, I had a brother that was a year older than me. I said, well, I got some other news for you. Might as well go. And no, he joined with me. And then it went over again, and I got him off the hook. He didn't catch it like I did.
What did your dad do? What did he do for a living, Richard?
My dad was a contractor. He built custom homes.
Okay.
And two of his helpers were going away.
Yep. He lost some good cheap labor.
Yeah, real cheap labor. But they got over it eventually.
3 years and all as a cook.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You were in the 101st, but you never jumped.
Oh no! I
You
was
you were a cook
attached
attached to an airborne unit.
Yeah.
Okay. Germany, you were there for like a year?
I was for a year.
Now, when you were in Germany, you were a cook in Germany, but did you cook in like a barracks, like a real building?
Yeah, they had these
With a
barracks
real
that we
kitchen?
stayed in were that Germans used in World War II. The big barracks, there were a couple of hundred people in each one, and we had 8. So there were 6 barracks up on the top of the hill. Then we had 2 barracks on the bottom. Each one was 200. So sometimes we would feed up to 1,200 people at a meal, depending on. We had a sites out there. They had sites, so of course all of Germany underground missiles.
Okay.
And one battery would go out there and they would do what they did out there for 30 days, or then come back. They kept changing out. And we were never allowed to go out there. They had their own cook situation. I do know they had underground bunkers. Everything was underground there. I do know that, but I never went and did any cooking out there.
When you went to Vietnam, you were a cook,
Yes, sir.
but you got to do guard duty. Didn't sound to me like you ever got much sleep.
I didn't.
Between those 155s and the other folks dropping
Yeah.
mortar rounds in, you didn't get much sleep.
There was very little sleep.
You sleep in a tent?
No, we had bunkers.
Okay.
We had every time we went to a new fire base, we had to build a new bunker.
Wood frame with sandbags and what have you?
There was no wood, just sandbags. We had some metal culverts that you lay out, and then you put we always put 3 layers of sandbags, but that's what they said the border wouldn't go 2 or 3 layers. So we always put 3 layers on. And sometimes we'd dig a hole and they had these long metal strips that they used to for airplane strips that they would use. They would clip these things together. They have a small strip for C-130s to land, and we would go down and take some of those strips sometimes on the edges there, and take them and we'd dig a hole and put a strip over the hole, and then put sandbags on it and stuff to make it more secure.
The culvert kind of thing that you'd dig a trench, put the culvert in, and then put the sandbags on it. When you left that particular fire base, whatever it was, did you have to dig that up and take it with you?
No, they.
You just left that where it was and went off and did it again with new material.
Correct. But
Okay.
what they would do, they would go in and they would blow them all up. They'd blow everything up before they left the area. And if somebody they came back to that area for some reason, then you had to rebuild it all. But they never left anything there for the VC to be able to use or it, so.
You were attached 2nd Field Artillery, and you had a 155 millimeter howitzer, I guess it was called.
Yes.
That would throw a shell 10 miles?
Yeah, 12 miles
12
was
miles.
the farthest it would go. They weighed 103 pounds.
Was that a fixed shell, Richard? It was all one
Yeah.
piece?
Yeah.
Like a rifle bullet?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a projectile with a bag of powder behind it. It was just
Well, it was a big, it was like a giant bullet, and you put that in there, and how far, whether they would call the quarter, how far where they wanted us to go. Then they would put the powder. They had these powdered bags were about a pound a piece, and then they would put 3, 4, whatever they needed, depending on how far
range.
they needed to go,
okay.
and get her all lined up and let her rip.
They would, in some cases, they would shoot those guns round the clock?
Right, there was something going on all the time, because there would be, like where we would be, there would be other fire bases or other bases that were set up, like it was an infantry you set up a ways out here or something, and I don't know, around us, there could be a half a dozen of those around us in the few mile area there, and so if they needed anything, we would, they'd tell us what they needed and where they wanted it, and that's what they do. But it went around the clock, and these guys, these gunners, would be able to get out there and just matter of, because whoever who's out there needed it, they needed it in a hurry. But these guys could get that done in 20 seconds or something. Get that thing loaded up and have that set in the right direction and everything, and shoot. And then it would take them all of about 5 seconds to have another round in there. And
If they shot that much with those things, how long would a gun last? Did they have to replace them after a couple months? I mean, if you fired
if they did, I didn't
1,000,
know
2,000,
about
3,000 rounds?
We just, as far as I know, we just had the same ones the whole time.
Okay.
I never was aware of any changing out of them or anything.
I didn't hear you mention it, but just a question, and in particular Vietnam. You know of any guys in your unit that use drugs?
Oh yeah, there was a lot
Marijuana?
of marijuana.
Smell it?
And they checked. They would have regular bunker checks. They'd come in and kind of tear apart looking for it, and every now and then they'd grab a guy, a certain guy that they knew that was a regular smoker of it, and they'd search him right there on the spot, you know, and just go through his clothes and everything, all but strip him and looking for it. They'd find it every now and then, but most of them wouldn't carry it with them. They just smoke it in their bunkers or
Off duty, so to
yeah.
speak.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or on guard duty. There was a lot of it on guard duty smoking. You could sit on the bunker and smell it coming from somewhere.
When you came home, Richard, you came out of whatever the big base was in Vietnam and stopped in Alaska. When you changed planes, did you come back down to the States in civvies, or were you still in uniform?
I was still in uniforms when we landed. I believe it was
What kind of-
Oakland. I think Oakland is where
Travis Air Force Base,
yeah.
probably that's where I
Yeah.
think most guys did. What kind of reception? Do you remember what kind of reception you got when you got off that airplane, or when you first got back in with civilians?
Well, my experience with that was on of course they gave us travel money and all that, and then they took us into, oh, wait a minute, I believe it was San Diego. Was that close to Travis?
It's down the coast a little
Yeah.
bit, but
They took us a bus there to the airport there, and we got, I got first ticket, first plane I could find back, you know, to Dallas. So, but when I got on the plane, I was the only one. I was in military clothes, and then there was the other 200 people in there were all hippies. That they were coming back from some kind of a deal, protest they'd been doing out there, and it was pretty rough ride. They were razzing me. They had a few spit at me, and it was just, you get him really had about enough of it. And these two lady stewardess kind of stepped in between and pulled me out. Come back here. And they had an area, of course, their area up there where they sit and stuff. And so they set me down there with them and said, "Why don't you stay here for a while? Let's see if we can keep this calmed down somewhat." So I flew back in, sitting there the rest of the time with them, and then well, I had not called my parents yet to tell them I was back in the States, so they weren't meeting me there at the airport. I thought I was just going to take a ride in and surprise them. I'm home, you know. And so these two girls were still kind of trying to keep these other guys off, you know, away from you and stuff. So they said, well, we live in Fort Worth, and that's where we're headed, and we're getting a cab. Would you like to come with us? And with three of us to split it, and sure. So we got the cab and went home and dropped my. I got out, and thanked these girls and all. And got my duffel bag, walked up to the door, rang the doorbell, and dropped my duffel bag. And my dad's room was just through the door. It was not far away, and that doorbell rang. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and you heard Rick's home. You heard that duffel bag drop. Well, he was at the front door, and just like that, he threw his robe on, and they knew it was time, but February 3rd or something like that. And that was about when I was supposed to be coming back home. So.
Then you went over to Fort Polk. You must have been a good cook.
I wasn't bad.
Good cook and a good listener, I would think.
Yeah.
Mixed pretty good bourbon and water for that general.
Yeah. Knew exactly how much he wanted in there and how much ice he wanted in there, and as long as he had every day to come and sit down to the first thing, he was fine.
Did they tell you what they wanted for meals, or did you kind of plan them?
No, she every morning would say what she wanted, and she would call over the commissary to the meat manager guy there and say who she was, and of course I want we need 4 steaks of whatever kind, and one of them 1.5 inches, and how much trim she wanted on fat, and they fixed her up where she got the best cuts of everything, of course, and I just go over and she'll send the market needed to pick up for this and that. So she'd give me some money, and I'd go over and go to the market, and Tom got an order for General Mueller, and he'd bring it out, and I think she'll like this. Okay. And they get dressed up and go back and cook it. And she did that every day. She never planned 2 or 3 days in ahead for any reason, particular reason.
They ever have like parties, big parties?
They did occasionally. Every time a new officer would be transferred into the base, they would have them over, and they would have they'd set up a nice setup for them. They usually cooked steaks outside, and for some reason, the captain, his aide, always did the cooking of the steaks when they were cooked in the outside like that, because he knew he'd find out how they wanted. He was good at getting them just, want them medium and pink. He could hit it every time, so they left that up to him. And we had one incident, one lady, they had a lady, there was a major's wife, and beforehand, the general's wife told me, okay, when you go around, I have to go around and refill their wine glasses for them. Don't fill hers. If it needs, and give her a little bit, she's an alcoholic. Okay. And one thing she's gonna do while she's gonna be cutting her steak and stuff. She'll make quite a mess around the plate there and stuff. And use your best judgment when you go and pick up the plates up there to bring in the dessert. You don't want to. You can't pick it up and try not to embarrass her or anything, you know. So okay. And so I'd pass. And I get to her wine, and whoops, I'm out of wine. And then I'd look over at the General's wife, and she just smiled. And I'd go back in, you know. And the way they call, I need more wine, I'd start back around again. Then this time I'd drop a little bit in hers, but I would never fill it up. And so like when I went and picked her plate up, though there was food everywhere, and I just picked the plate up and held the plate down here and then brought my hand across and just nobody even noticed what I did and knocked it all in there. And then brought it out there. And the General's wife, she was just sitting, she just looked at me smiling. Like, what a great job, you know. Later she told me, well, you couldn't have handled that any better.
That was pretty good duty, I guess.
Oh, I tell you what, I'd leave there on Fridays. I never cooked for them on Fridays. I was there, and they had two boys, and they would go off to do what they ever did. But they had he would, after when he got off, he would go over to the officers club, and she would meet him there, and they would have dinner there for every Friday night. And the boys would go off on dates or whatever, and she'd have some pizzas, just some frozen pizzas. I'd cook a couple frozen pizzas for the boys, give it to them, and they have a good evening. And then I left, and I was off and running. And I had this girl I'd met up in Lake Charles. It was 70 miles away, and I'd go up there every night, every Friday night, and there was like about 3 other guys there that they were dating friends of her, so we'd all about split the gas, and we'd go up every Friday night. We didn't have to come back till a Sunday, because they would get their passes. I didn't need a pass. I just went where I wanted. And you couldn't beat the deal. In fact, one night I had, one day I came in, and General was still there that morning. Usually he was gone by the time I got there. She would just cook him all he wanted, a piece of toast and a cup of coffee. That's all he wanted for breakfast. And I was in, and I was kind of dragging. Usually when I get up in the morning, I'm one of these morning persons, and get up, and I wake up pretty good mood most of the time and pretty cheerful. And this morning I was kind of dragging, and he, what's the matter this morning? I said, well, when I got back off left here last night, I got there, they put me on a motor pool. They got an inspection coming out and put me on motor pool duty. And I was there until 5 o'clock this morning. And so I got about 2 hours sleep before I got here. His face started turning red. He said, you don't do that, you work for me. Yes, sir. But I understand that, but at the same time, this man was Captain so and so, and I couldn't, you know, I didn't know what to tell him. I ain't gonna do it or what, you know. He said, no, you did the right thing, but don't worry about it. I'll get it taken care of. And so he got his aide, called him and told him what happened. And he said, later on, I want him on the phone, and you get him on the phone for me. And the company clerk was a real good friend of mine, and he was in there. He said the captain was in there standing at attention talking. Yes, sir, I understand, sir. Sorry, sir, it won't happen again. Then he come back, and when I came back in, I had my car. I had one of these what we call muscle cars, you know, and it had these loud pipes on it, and you could hear me coming from a long way off. The company clerk heard me coming up. He went out the building and ran over. He said, Rick, I don't know what the hell you did, but you better go get behind behind the barracks, and don't let anybody see you until I get back there and talk to you. So okay. So I went back there. I didn't know what was going on. And what happened? What did you do today? I said, nothing. Joe has asked me why I was so tired this morning. I told him that I was up doing water pool all night. And he said I worked for him, not for this guy. He says, you want him, he says, that captain, he was furious all day. He said he called, he got there, we had a couple of lieutenants there and some sergeants. He got all of them in to his office. He said, y'all know who Jacobs is? No? Well, he said, before this day's up, you better know who he is. And he told them that he sleeps here, and that's all he does. He pulls no extra duty. He works for General Mueller, and that's that. And that was the end of it. I never had to do anything again.
Let me ask you one thing here to finish. Mortar round dropped in. You said you had a slight injury, got a Purple Heart. Is that where you got the Purple Heart, the mortar?
Yes, sir.
You're in that wheelchair. Is that service related? Is that a result of that injury?
No, sir.
No, okay. Well, we don't have to go any farther. You bet, sir. But we appreciate you coming down, talking to us. You've got some interesting stories for a cook. You had three pretty interesting years. And
it was
appreciate your coming to see us, and appreciate your time in the service.